This episode of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast is sponsored by Caneswear. Caneswear.com is the spot where Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com, the best and most affordable gear for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Marlins, the Miami Heat, the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, all of the professional and college sports teams in South Florida. Caneswear.com has you covered. If you're in South Florida, you can visit the storefront at 2655 South University Drive in Davie. They ship internationally as well. So Caneswear.com, make it the place. It's the best and most affordable Miami Dolphins gear. That's Caneswear.com, Caneswear.com. And don't forget about Dolphins Talk Extra. Go to patreon.com/Dolphins Talk for additional Miami Dolphins content. You get extra access to our private Discord server. You get bonus podcasts covering the Miami Dolphins. You get off-topic content as well. We have live watch-alongs. We have retro rewatches where we watch old games and talk about them. We do off-topic shows. We have prizes, contests, all kinds of exclusive access only for Dolphins Talk Extra subscribers. So join us, patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. You can join the fun for as little as $3 a month. Head on over to Dolphins Talk Extra at patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. And now, on with the show.
Hello, Dolphins Talk fans, and welcome to another episode. My name is Marissa Marino, and today I am joined by Mike Giardi, writer for the Boston Sports Journal and co-host of the All 32 podcast, covering all things Patriots. Mike, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It should be fun here. Should be hopefully a good game on Sunday.
I am hoping so. Both of our teams are coming off of losses, and I know they're both hungry to get a W, so it's going to be very interesting. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to start with a couple hot Dolphins questions, and then we'll get into all of the Patriots stuff that you cover for us. So first question for you. The Dolphins are coming into this game off of what I'm sure you know is a brutal loss, and there's already talk of when will the coach be fired, not if. This is more than your typical week one overreaction, both from the media and the national media. Can you remember a situation like this where after week one, the environment around a team seems to be so toxic?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think this dates all the way back to the end of last season, and how the season finished and the Tyreek Hill, did he quit on the team at the end? Well, he did quit on the team at the end of the season. Then does he want to be here? Does he not want to be here? Jalen Ramsey's available for a trade. All those sorts of things sort of created this impression that the Dolphins were in turmoil. And then for them to go out and play the way they did in the first game, I mean, pretty stark reminder that things can end very quickly here, because it wasn't more than, a year and a half ago that Mike McDaniel was a genius and one of the hot young coaches in football. And look at the way he rehabilitated Tua, and this offense is cutting edge. And now all of a sudden it's like, are they listening to him? He's actually blaming players, which quite frankly, I don't blame him to a certain degree. Like, you guys have to play better than we did. But yeah, it's rare that this happens in week one, and heading into week two, the wagons are already circled and you're thinking, does he survive the month of September?
Absolutely. I mean, it is definitely a topic of conversation. I've been talking about this. I'm in black. I'm in mourning. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen with this team. So I'm like officially in black mode until I figure out what's going to happen. But so talking about Mike McDaniel, I mean, what are your thoughts on him as a head coach? Because like you just said, I mean, he went from the media darling basically to the hot seat real quickly. I mean, we all heard Rex Ryan call him like nerd boy on national television. But what are your thoughts on him?
So I think Mike can still be a good head coach in this league. I think he's done some really nice things. I think the balance of players on the roster was always trending towards, if it starts to go bad, then it's really going to go bad, because I think Jalen Ramsey has been a front runner his entire career. He's a terrific player, don't get me wrong. But like, the moment he doesn't feel like that team can do something, or he's being respected financially, he wants out. Tyreek Hill has obviously been a handful for a number of years, actually basically his entire career, dating back to college, with some of the incidents that happen off the field with him. And he's one of those guys that, like, if I'm not getting the ball, then I'm not happy. And it doesn't really matter whether we're winning or losing, even though he'll tell you that it does matter. So I think there's a lot of mouths to feed there. There's a lot of egos, and this team is sort of in between, right? Where there's enough talent on the roster that you think, oh, they could be a playoff team. And there's also an age situation, the offensive line, the secondary. You say, well, maybe this is kind of a soft reset for the football team. And when you're telling players with big egos that this might be a soft reset one way or the other, that doesn't go very well.
No, it absolutely does not. I mean, and you're right. On paper, there's a lot of pieces of this team that are like, wow, they should be putting up some big numbers. But then there's also areas where our secondary, where your starter is a guy named Storm Duck, great guy, but a second-year player.
Yeah.
So talking about some of these players, Tua is always a polarizing topic of conversation. He's in year 6. Do you think he can still be the long-term answer at quarterback for this franchise from what you've seen? Or if this season is under 500 or just right around 500, do you believe it'll be in everyone's best interest to part company and go in different directions, even though it'll be a hefty salary cap hit?
Yeah, I mean, that's not that it can't be done. We just saw Denver do it a couple of years ago with Russell Wilson. I mean, teams can move on if they want to, and you just have to figure out a way to make the cap hit lessen over the course of time, or just take your lumps, take the big hit. And hey, that's basically an indication to everybody, like this year is a rebuilding year, which sometimes isn't necessarily the worst thing. I still think he's a good player. I do find it curious that when you look at the way they run their offense, the way they call their offense, and I had Devin McCourty, former Patriot, now one of the in-studio hosts for NBC Sunday Night Football in America, and he was like, he doesn't like to throw outside the numbers. And he goes, I can't tell you whether that's a Mike McDaniel thing or a Tua thing, but the fact is most teams come into it going, we don't really necessarily have to respect that because that's just not something that they do. And even though you have these speedy receivers all over the place, and, you know, obviously Tua has a good enough arm to shoot the ball down the sidelines, it's just not something they do consistently. And I think that sort of made the offense a little bit stuck. You know, I think there was a point there where they're talking about like teams were borrowing from Mike McDaniel. They were stealing his stuff. And now it's like, people have stolen that stuff. Now the rest of the league has seen it. What's your counter to that? And they haven't had a counter in the last, whatever, half year or so.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I saw that you had him on the show, and that was absolutely great. But yeah, I mean, it's true with Tua, and so it'll be interesting to see where. I know they had a little team huddle this past week, and it'll be interesting to see what comes out from that. So transitioning into your hot topic, which is the Patriots. This team, as a Dolphin fan, we haven't worried about them for a couple years, and now they're back in it again. So they have a new look, they have a new head coach, but they're coming off of a rough week 1 loss at home to the Raiders. What do you think was the main reason why the Patriots lost that game to the Raiders this past week?
So many things, right? There was some things that the Raiders did in the game that the Patriots weren't prepared for, which always happens in week 1, right? But I don't think they did a very good job adjusting to that. Offensively, I think they wanted to look. There's great promise in Drake May, but they don't want to put too much on him, and they couldn't run the football. They did. And if you watch the tape over, the offensive line just got no movement whatsoever. They abandoned the running game in the second half. I think they ran the ball 3 times in the second half. One was him on a designed run, and one was a jet sweep to one of the wide receivers. So really 1 carry for a running back in the second half. That is not in any way, shape, or form the way they drew up that game plan. And it wasn't as if the game had gotten completely away from them. They were up 10-7 at halftime. They were down 14-10 early in the third quarter. It's like you can still run the football, but they were just like, this play, as Mike Vrabel said, it wasn't a good play for us. So we basically just went away from it. And that, I think, put too much on Drake May. The way teams are going to approach him, and I would be shocked if the Dolphins didn't sort of emulate this approach, is we're going to make you matriculate the ball down the field. Hit 6 or 7 passes. We're not going to give you the stuff over the top. We're going to make you take the underneath stuff and see if you can beat us that way. And he's a young quarterback. He's a little antsy. He wants to push the ball down the field. His accuracy isn't always perfect. That's something that he's still sort of working on. So it worked for the Raiders. The Patriots sort of got bogged down, put too much on Drake. There were some inaccuracies. He had a big interception in the second half. He also had a strip sack fumble that they recovered, but sort of took them out of – the drive was going fairly well, and it took them out of that momentum. So to me, that's a big key for them, is just sort of managing how Drake plays. They also had 9 penalties in the game, which if you had asked me this team had really buttoned things up during the course of the spring and summer with Mike Vrabel in his first year. I wouldn't have expected that to happen. And then a ton of explosive plays, which if you're the Patriots, once again, will be a huge priority going into Miami and facing all that speed. I think they gave up 9 pass plays of 20 or more yards. And then there was a 10th play that went for 19 yards. So right on the borderline, you can't live that way. You give up too many big plays like that. There's a long touchdown on the first quarter to Trey Tucker, where they came in a 0 blitz. They left their safety all alone on Trey Tucker. Trey Tucker runs a 4-3. Your safety runs a 4-6. Tell me who's going to win that, Marissa. You know who's going to win that. It's going to be Trey Tucker. So they didn't get home. They gave up a touchdown.
Got it. I mean, yeah, that's a great in-depth answer. It's interesting because whenever the Dolphins play, usually the Patriots are playing opposite, so I don't get to tune in very often. So we appreciate that. So Mike Vrabel, I mean, I've always been a big fan of his. I actually was hoping the Dolphins would acquire him, but he went to the Patriots. So what is this offense like with Mike Vrabel and now Drake May, in your opinion? I mean, May is a very talented player. I just assume he's just going to continue to develop and get better. Do you believe that they will be a pass first team, or are they a physical smash mouth, establish the line of scrimmage, establish the run type of team now?
I think that's what Mike wants, what you just said, the latter point there. I think he wants them to be physical. And it's not just because of his experience in Tennessee when you had a unicorn in Derrick Henry, right? Who's still at this age is still just tearing through defenses like it's no thing. But they have 3 good running backs: Trevion Henderson, the rookie, Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson, all capable NFL players. Henderson, they feel like, has star potential. The offensive line, as I said, just didn't move enough bodies. But I think if Mike had his druthers, establish the run the play action off that, you can use Drake's athleticism, and then maybe you can go over the top of the defense. You can strike for some explosive plays, which, again, they weren't able to do in the game against the Raiders. This, for Drake, is his 4th offensive coordinator in 4 years, dating back to his time at North Carolina. He had 2 different offensive coordinators his 2 years as a starter at North Carolina, had Alex Van Pelt last year with Gerard Mayo as the head coach, and now it's Josh McDaniels under Mike Vrabel. McDaniels' system is complicated. That's not to say that Drake can't pick it up, but I think this was always going to be a process where I would bet you by mid to late October, early November, that it turns and Drake feels comfortable in the offense. I think right now he's still learning it. I think they're still learning him as a group. And so you're going to have growing pains. I mean, again, the talent is there. There's no question. Like, if he threw for 300 yards on Sunday, I wouldn't be surprised. If he struggled and threw for 150, I wouldn't be surprised, because I think it's a process where they're still learning each other. Didn't play a ton in the preseason and still trying to figure out where things fit the best. And that's going to take some time.
Sounds like there's a common theme with coaches with the last name McDaniels having a really hard, difficult offense to figure out. But so the Patriots also had an interesting move. They released safety Jabril Peppers a week or 2 back. What was the reasoning behind that?
So he always felt like a curious scheme fit in terms of Vrabel, who wants his defense to be more split safeties. He wants those guys to be able to come down in the box and cover. Jabril Peppers is a head down, go forward, blow up plays type of guy. He's not great in coverage. They have him and Kyle Duggar, who are basically the same player. Duggar's a little bit bigger. Duggar makes more money. They tried to trade Duggar around the cut day, at the end of August. Couldn't manage that. And I had wondered, if you can't move one, will you move the other? And that's what happened. It still comes as a surprise because, Marissa, he'd be one of their best 53. And they started a rookie in Craig Woodson on one side at safety. He seems like he's a promising player, very smart. I think we saw it all spring and summer. Like, he seems to be in the right place, and with confidence, maybe he'll start making more plays. But Jalen Hawkins, kind of a journeyman type safety. He was the guy who got toasted on that 0 blitz that I mentioned earlier with Trey Tucker, and had it sort of a mixed day. He had an interception. He had a sack. He also missed a couple tackles, blew a couple coverages, including one for the touchdown. So I would have kept Jabril Peppers, but they're clearly putting their own imprint on the football team. And they look at Jabril Peppers and say, he's on the wrong side of this thing. And we're going to go with younger guys that we have a little bit more faith that they'll be where they're supposed to be. And we'll see how that works. They're going to see Jabril Peppers a week from now, I believe, because they're playing Pittsburgh and he signed with Pittsburgh. So that'll be fun.
If only they would ask our opinions before they make these moves. I mean, we could
Right?
just help them a little bit, but I guess not.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. There are many times where you go, "Why'd you do that?" And hey, look, they get paid to do this. There's a lot
Yeah.
of thought that goes into it. There's the cap issue with it as well.
Mhm.
But sometimes you just look at the way this guy played in particular, physical guy. You kind of want that energy. Mike had talked about like he wanted a violent football team.
Mhm.
Well, Jabril Peppers is probably one of the most violent football players he had, but now no longer here.
Yeah, it was hard for us as Dolphin fans too to watch two people who went to the Steelers. Jalen Ramsey had a game-ending
Mhm.
tackle
Big
in
hit, yeah.
the most recent game, and Jonnu Smith had a touchdown. So kind of hard to watch. So okay, so continuing talking about this Patriots defense. Do you like the pieces of this defense that the Patriots have this season, or do you believe that they're missing something?
Well, they'll be missing Christian Gonzalez on Sunday again for the second straight week. He had a
Mm,
hamstring injury that came up at the end of July in training camp and has not practiced since. So that's 6 weeks basically without him. He's their best player, period. End of story. Offense, defense, whatever. So to not have him
mm,
is a big loss because I think the way they built their team, they signed Carlton Davis in free agency, gave him a lot of money to be the number 2 corner. You had Gonzalez as a potential all pro as your other corner, and then invested some big money in the interior defensive line. Christian Barmore a couple years ago got the big extension, and of course missed most of last year with the blood clot, but he's back. And then Milton Williams, who got paid an outrageous amount of money and had a terrific first week. So I think they thought, well, pressure from the interior with these two guys, teams will have to double them. That'll free up the rushers on the outside, like Harold Landry, who had 2.5 sacks in the opener. And then we've got these two really good corners, so we can get in your face. We can play press man, and we're going to force you to turn the ball over. Well, none of those things happen against the Raiders, and not having Gonzalez is a big piece of that. Just the ability for him to travel with players. You know, he traveled at times with Tyreek Hill last year and did a good job on him. In the game against the Raiders, Brock Bowers was going off. They didn't have anyone to put on him to extinguish. He gets hurt. Jacoby Myers is stepping in the slot, killing him. They didn't have anyone there to do it. So Gonzalez would have been that movable chess piece for them. So I think that's a big issue going into Miami. I mean, I think they were probably holding out hope that they would have Gonzalez this week. And maybe that's one of the reasons why, at least I thought last week, that they were sort of holding Gonzalez back, but then didn't practice at all this week. And, who knows now with where his hamstring's at and when we see him next.
I mean, I hope he gets healthy, but darn, he's not going to be again
I
playing
know. Yeah.
against us.
Dolphins fans are devastated.
How unfortunate. Okay, so talking about this game this weekend, I mean, who do you like this weekend? I know you cover the Patriots. I know I'm talking about the Dolphins, but how do you see this matchup going and who do you like for it?
So to me, if the Dolphins have any shred of pride, what they put out there Sunday in Indianapolis was as bad as anybody in the league this past week. I gotta believe, hey, you got to practice all week. You're at home. You're gonna play. Like, show up and play. Like, give some energy here. Patriots have always struggled historically in Miami. It certainly doesn't help playing them here in September when it's going to be really hot. And we've had nice weather here, but we're not talking 90 degrees and humid. So that's always an adjustment. Patriot players in the past, McCourty talked to me about that, saying like, you're just not ready for it. And
Yeah.
when Belichick was the coach, he used to say, I don't want to hear about weather. And then he would put them in the bubble in the wintertime when they would play Miami in December and turn up the heat to 90. And he said, we go down there, we're already exhausted from the whole week of just being in this heat. And then he said, you play them in September. We went down a couple of years ago, played them in September. We stayed in wherever, Fort Lauderdale, somewhere for a couple of days beforehand to get acclimated. And he said, I felt like it was the same thing. I felt like by the time we got to the game, we were exhausted from the heat. So that's an advantage. So if the Dolphins have any pride, the Dolphins should come out on top. I think talent-wise, they're probably a wash. Maybe the Dolphins have a little bit more talent overall. And it's a home game. It's early in the year. You still have something to play for. I would kind of err on the side of the home team wins here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, if the Dolphins don't do this against the Patriots, who again notoriously, I mean, Tua's known when Belichick was there to have Belichick's numbers, quote unquote. But at home, I think some heads are going to spin, and there'll be some things happening behind the scenes after the game. So It'll be very interesting, I think, with both teams to see what they bring to this game after both of these losses next week. So I am not just because I'm a Dolphin fan, I'm just very intrigued to see what happens this week with these, especially with these two quarterbacks and how they show up in this game.
Yeah, I just like there's pride involved here, right? Like you're the Patriots, you realize that this is a process and you're, again, new coach, the third coach in 3 years, whole new system. Like, even though there was some optimism around here because of the schedule early on, people thought, oh, this could be a 9 and 10 win team. And hey, Washington last year, okay, that does happen. Every year there's always a team that kind of sneaks up out of nowhere, but this roster still needs work. To me, they're an offseason away. Next offseason, if they have another good draft and are productive in free agency, then all of a sudden I think we can talk about a real team that could be a playoff team that could challenge. So they're going through this process, and Miami is sort of, again, like I said, they're a team caught in between. Look, if to your point and what I was saying, if Miami doesn't show up and loses this football game and plays like they did against Indianapolis, then I don't know that Mike McDaniel makes it out of the office on Monday. Like that. I think that's the sort of thing that could happen here. So I don't know. Show some pride, right? There's a lot of guys making a lot of money. There are a lot of good football players still on Miami's football team. So to me, that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Absolutely. 100%. I agree with that. So if you had to bet, if you were a betting man, I don't know if you are, but if you were to bet, who do you think comes in second place in the AFC East behind Buffalo? And I'll be honest, even though I do a Dolphins podcast, and even though I'm a diehard fan, I'm a realist. And when I came into this season, I said I thought the Patriots were most likely to take second place in the division. Although we saw a great showing from the Jets, even though they lost, put up tough competition against the Steelers. Who do you see slotting into that second spot?
Yeah, it's a great question. I thought the Patriots and the Jets would sort of duke it out. I did think the Dolphins were going to step back this season. But then you see what the Patriots produced in week 1, and now they're in a spot that's been difficult for them historically in Miami. So that's a pretty, it's early on, but that's a big hole to dig. New York's got Buffalo at home. Buffalo's without Ed Oliver. Like, there's an opportunity here for the Jets to sort of announce themselves a little bit. Like the game against Pittsburgh was nice. I think their defense is better than they showed against Pittsburgh. So if their defense can tighten things up, I think they'll be able to run the ball on Buffalo. I think everybody can run the ball on Buffalo, basically. So maybe New York ends up becoming the team. Their question is, Patriots have a young quarterback who's still developing. Tua is here in year 6. Justin Fields bounced around. Is Justin Fields an answer? I don't know. Feels like he's more of a stopgap situation, but who knows? Maybe the way they ran the offense in week 1 really sort of highlighted all his strengths and tried to hide all of his weaknesses. I don't know if you can do that for 17 weeks because teams will get tape, but that is an interesting one because he doesn't lack talent. I think we all understand that. He was a top 10 pick. He was terrific at Ohio State, and there have been moments in his NFL career. I mean, he rushed for 1,000 yards as a quarterback, which is crazy. That if he can just put together a little bit more in the passing game, maybe they become a little bit more of a dangerous team there. But again, I don't think anybody challenges Buffalo. I think the gap between Buffalo and everybody else is greater than in any division in the National Football League.
After that showing against the Ravens, I can confidently say that I was like, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, could you imagine if that's the Dolphins out there? And I was like, wait a second, that will be us next week on national television.
Yeah. I mean, look, and it's another situation. Hey, Dolphins win this week, then they've got Buffalo. Maybe they got a little confidence going. Who knows?
Right.
The thing that I've learned from covering this league for a long time is that the first week leads to the greatest overreactions, right? And we start to settle in. Now we get more evidence about what's going on, things that you thought were true get to be proven not true, or things that you weren't sure. Now we have 2 games of evidence. Now we have 3. You start to stack it on and realize like this is what this team is, and it's it's going to go in a certain direction. Whereas in week 1, I mean, last year the Patriots beat the Cincinnati Bengals in week 1. They ran the ball down their throats. Everyone was like, "Oh my goodness, the rebuild might be a little ahead of schedule. They could be a playoff team. They have an identity." And as we know, even though they ended up with the 4th overall pick in the draft, they were the worst team in the league last year. And the only reason they ended up with the number 4 pick and not the number 1 is because they won a game against Buffalo, in which Buffalo did a better job of tanking the game than you did. So I mean, that just goes to show you, like, we made this big reaction to what happened in week 1, and by the end of it, everybody's getting fired, and they're turning over more than 50% of their roster.
Yeah, I hope the Dolphins come out that in next week's game and they're like, "Psych, we were messing with you week 1. Just kidding." But I doubt that'll happen. But anyways, we are going to go into our segment before we wrap up here, and it is our Dolphins Talk speed round. Fans are loving this. 5 questions with Mike Giardi. They are just fun, quick, lightning style questions. I know it's late in the evening, but Mike,
I'm ready.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. Question number 1. If you weren't covering football, what sports would you like to cover as a journalist?
Hockey. Hockey was so in my previous life at NBC Sports, I covered the Bruins as much as I covered the Patriots. Was fortunate enough to cover the Bruins winning the Stanley Cup in 2011. Again, covered their run in 2013 to the finals where they lost to Chicago. There's something about hockey players. I think if you know hockey players, you've been around them, you can have conversations with them that you can't have with anyone else. I've been sworn at by hockey players. I will swear back, and then 5 minutes later, we're fine. Like that's just the nature of the beast. So I've always enjoyed that sport, and in particular, enjoyed covering the guys in that sport.
Not a ton of sensitivity there. You can talk. You can get down to business. Yeah. All right. Question number 2. Do you have a favorite emotional support TV show? That show you turn on in the background when you're having a day?
Oh, that's a good one. I still like Deadliest Catch, which isn't exactly a calming television show. People can die. The seas are like crazy, but I've always loved the ocean, fish, the whole thing. So yeah, I it's on like season 25 or something. I don't even know. It's way up there. And I've probably watched the majority of all the episodes over the years.
I've seen quite a few. I love the accents. That's really why I turn in to hear the way that they talk is amazing. So, all right. Question number 3. So if you can't pick Boston, what do you believe is the best sports city in America?
Ooh. I maybe would say Philadelphia because it's similar to Boston in the intensity for the sports.
Oh, the intensity, yeah.
Yeah, and caring. Like, if your team stinks, people let you know your team stinks. And if they're good, I love that sort of energy. Like it can be toxic at times. I'm sure it's toxic for players at times when it's not going well, but I sort of love that day-to-day intensity. Like they analyze the littlest things, and we do that here. I kind of love that.
Awesome. All right, Bill Belichick. Do you believe he will ever be a head coach in the NFL again?
I think I Googled him the other day for something, and it made reference to maybe Miami was going to hire him as the next head coach. And you know how these things work. It was probably AI generated or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think so. I think the way he's handled himself since he left New England, the way he's handled himself in the last month, if you've been paying attention to some of this stuff and some of the pettiness that's going on, like, I think there's a reason why he didn't get hired 2 cycles ago. And then I think this just reinforces it. Like his ego is out of control. And we're not sure that his football acumen at this point is on the level that it was 10 years ago when the Patriots were winning championships. I think a lot of people look at it, and maybe unfairly, because I think he played obviously a massive role in them winning all those titles. But people now more and more look at Tom Brady and say, you were nothing without him before, and you're nothing without him again. So, yeah, I doubt it. Seems highly unlikely to me.
Absolutely. And question number 5, what is your favorite sandwich and why?
Ooh. It's going to be lame. I think like it's just a turkey with a lot of mustard, some pickles, some hots.
That sounds good to me.
Sourdough generally, but it could be a good roll. Like, yeah, it's
a nice classic turkey deli sandwich.
Yeah, I'm not like too crazy. I mean, I like a good Reuben, I guess, like some of those things. What's yours?
So mine would probably have to be, I like anything pesto, like chicken pesto with some Roma tomatoes and fresh mozzarella and
had I been thinking maybe prosciutto, mozzarella, a little pesto, like that would be that's
Are you from Italian lineage with
Yes, big time. Yes, absolutely. Okay, my grandparents came over, so yeah.
Marino Giardi, I was thinking maybe.
Yeah, we're in the same ballpark, I think.
Well, this has been absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. For everyone that's listening, make sure you follow Mike on Twitter. You can follow him at Mike Giardi, spelled Giardi. You can also follow him on his All 32 podcast. Mike, where can they check that out?
That is wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify. You can watch it on YouTube as well. Like pretty much anywhere you get your podcast, you can get that. And it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great. I will be sure to check it out. Well, best of luck to you and the team. I'll be rooting for the Dolphins, but best of luck to you regardless.
The way I tell people all the time, I've been covering them so long, you don't really, you root for people more than you root for the team.
Right.
The way I look at it is, whatever happens, I got to write about it. So they lose, we write about it. They win, and they're good, we write about it. Whatever happens, we analyze it the best way we can.
Hopefully both teams will give you a lot of really great stuff to write about. Let's put it that way.
Let's have an exciting game at least. I don't need any like 10-7. I don't need lightning delays. I don't need any of that stuff. Let's have a nice, crisp 3-hour football game. Get it done with.
I'm ready for it. Well, thank you so much again. For everybody out there in Dolphins Talk Nation, if you are watching on YouTube, please hit the like button and subscribe. Leave us a comment about how much you loved having Mike on the show. We hope that everybody has a great rest of your day, and fins up.
Hey everyone, Mike here from DolphinsTalk.com, and thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to take a second to smash the like button here on this video, and also to ensure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. We thank you so much for listening, and we know there are a lot of podcast options out there these days regarding the Miami Dolphins and with non-Miami Dolphins podcasts. So we do appreciate you giving us a few minutes each and every day to tune in and listen to all of our shows. Everyone here on staff, thanks you so much. And if you enjoy these shows, also please be sure to sign up for Dolphins Talk Extra, our Patreon service at patreon.com/Dolphins Talk, where we have bonus podcasts about the Dolphins and some shows not about the Miami Dolphins. We have a private message board. We also have a ton of contests where we give away really cool prizes, and it's all for the low cost of $3 a month. Again, that's patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. And also please be sure to follow the written content we have up on our website. So check out the website, DolphinsTalk.com, each and every day. Once again, thank you again for listening. Take care, and we'll talk to you again real soon.